Hello again, and welcome to Foreplay Radio Sex Therapy. I'm your host, certified sex therapist Laurie Watson, author of Wanting Sex Again, and blogger at Psychology Today and WebMD. And I have with me Dr. Adam Mathews, my co-host, who's a couples therapist, psychotherapist, and president of NCAMFT. Foreplay is dedicated to helping couples keep it hot. Thanks for listening. Now on to today's topic.
So we are talking about female sexual pursuers today, or she wants it more. And Laurie, I just have one question for you.
What's that?
Does she actually exist?
She
this feels
does
like this
exist.
is Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, aliens, things that we rarely see.
This probably more than anything, we've had a lot of listeners write in and say, hey, I don't identify with this traditional split that you're talking about where he wants it more. She's like, I want it more. And girlfriend, I've heard you. I know you're out there. I know it's true. I know that the female sexual pursuer does exist. And, we want to talk about why she exists.
Yeah.
What makes her so special that somehow or another she feels more sexual desire. And, oftentimes, of course, the ones who come see me, the ones who are just out there with their partners, maybe just listening, not in therapy, they're just happy.
Yeah.
They're just happy all the time,
They're just
right?
happy all the time.
And their partners are happy.
Yeah, I've actually seen this a lot in my practice as well, which is sometimes surprising, but less so now. In the beginning, it surprised me, but where they come in and it's seemingly reversed from traditional gender norms.
Yeah, gender stereotypes.
Gender stereotypes. So, in your opinion, why do you think this is? Why do some women continue to want sex more than others?
Yeah, I think that, as I've listened to women like this and talked with them, there's certain traits that sexual pursuers have, that female sexual pursuers have, and the ones who kind of want it more than their partners, or just, it doesn't necessarily have to result in conflict, right? I mean, some women just have healthy sexuality, and many of these women do. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason it's so rare is because our culture is so toxic to female sexuality.
Yeah. I
mean, there are so many anti-sex shaming messages about women that it's really difficult to kind of hang on to yourself and feel sexy, and feel sexual.
Yeah. So it's the shame of the cultural messages that weigh down libido, rather than libido being naturally suppressed.
Yeah, I mean, for most women that have low libido, I often think of it as occluded libido. It's like that there's something blocking it.
You're going to have to define that word for me, or because I don't have dictionary.com handy. Do you say occluded?
Occluded. It's blocked.
All right.
I mean, often in a healthy person, libido is part of their life force. But for many reasons, it can get blocked. And certainly one is a cultural message. We know childhood messages are powerful that can, destroy kind of a person's feeling of freedom and lack of inhibition sexually.
Yeah. So there's this message that maybe she is sexual and does desire sex, but that she shouldn't be.
Right.
And so
a woman who wants it is a whore.
Yeah, and so that's going to generate a lot.
What woman alive hasn't heard that? You're a slut. You want sex. You want sex too much. You whore, you slut.
Yeah, so you either lean into it and rebel against the cultural messages, or there's a lot of conflict there.
Right.
That's going to...
Yeah, I remember there was a guy, I was really young and I was really religious. And, he said something to me I was young. I was 16 and I was starting to flirt, and he was an older guy and I looked up to him and I think he kind of was flirting back, but because I was flirting, he sort of shamed me and he said, when you talk like that, it makes it sound like you're horny. And I'm like,
how old was this guy?
I was 16 and I think he was 19, and he was sort of he was kind of more like a youth group leader. No.
Why not?
I felt deeply ashamed. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't be flirting and talking like this. Even though he was doing it, for crying out loud. He was a real fool because he should have capitalized on me and thought, he should have that's the woman, but didn't. And instead shame me. And I just remember, okay, I got to be tighter. I got to not, say these things. That flirtation is bad. I mean, on every level, I was shamed. It was like, I probably did want it. And and then just flirting was bad too. I mean, it was just, and I was 16. I was not flirting dirty.
Yeah.
I did not know how to do that.
But that continues into adulthood, right? Because I hear women with stories similar to that over and over again throughout the lifespan. Right. If they show any kind of sexual aggression or interest, yeah.
Right, exactly. The question out there for all the male sexual pursuers is like, how do I get my wife to be one of these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're gonna unlock that secret here, right? Is that what's gonna happen?
I hope so. I hope so. I think some of it is internal. A lot of it is a woman who has developed an erotic core, and that's like how our abdomen is the core strength of our body. Mm-hmm. For our sexuality as a woman, we have to have a strong inner core. And what does that mean? She has to be in touch with her desire. And again, we know that for women, it's not necessarily physiological, but she allows herself and gives herself permission to feel it. She hears a sexy song and she starts to dance. She enjoys the fact that she walks in a room and heads turn, and she feels confident about that, and that's okay. She doesn't feel anxious about it. A lot of women who maybe have been traumatized or been in some way hurt by sexual attention don't feel confident about that, don't like it, run from it. But the woman who has either overcome that or hasn't suffered those things, she has a sense of confidence.
It feels like women more than men oftentimes disconnect from their bodies, from their physical bodies.
Absolutely.
And they're like not fully present in their body, or they've been taught that, or maybe that's the shame message that we're talking about has caused women to disconnect really quickly, more so than men, I think.
We know our culture is dangerous to women sexually, right? I mean, the Me Too movement is discussing this in terms of how scary it is, how many women have experienced rape and molestation or inappropriateness. I mean, it's just rampant. And certainly, boys as well. We know boys have been victims sexually too. We don't mean to leave you out there. We know that.
Yeah, but I mean, trauma definitely does that for both men and women. It can take them out of their bodies, for sure.
Right,
but I think there's other things for women especially. That
being weaker, I think it's hard to comprehend how that feels. I mean, when I was a girl, I remember being in my home and there were construction workers who were men, strong men, and they would whistle at me, and they'd make a lot of comments that were sexual innuendos. And just getting out of my car to walk to my house, I felt afraid. It was like having a visible female body. I had a fear level, whereas I think men, because of their strength, don't have that. Anyway, I want to go back to what feels good, what is the erotic core. I think a woman who wants it voices her need. She is confident about saying, this is what I like, this is the way I like it, and she doesn't apologize for that. I would say maybe on the negative side, college girls and hookups, are they really voicing their need? I don't get it. Because so many men talk about, hit it and quit it. They want to just have sex and they don't care about her needs. And she doesn't feel comfortable talking about her needs until she's in relationship and he asks. But I think a woman who wants it and has a solid core tells, this is what I like. And isn't ashamed of knowing that about her body. I mean, so many women feel ashamed and they're like, well, he's supposed to know. I'm not supposed to have to tell him. It's like, no, girlfriend, you are. You're supposed to tell him. Yeah. You really are. I think a woman who wants it more or wants it and is healthy feels comfortable with initiation. She can say, this is what I like. Let's do it now. And she's confident in saying, now's my time. I'm ready for that.
But again, that's going back to she knows her body. She's connected with her body. She knows what she likes and what she doesn't like, and knows that she has to be able to speak up for those things.
I don't think that necessarily for her, though, that she initiates because her body feels horny. It's like she initiates because she wants her body to feel good. And she allows herself, like, okay, this is when I want to feel it. And I think, that is not something that women generally do. I think this woman who allows herself to want it is resistant to the sex shaming and the gender conforming messages of our culture. She has somehow or another bypassed that, gotten healthy, and, developed this strength. Her superpower. It's her superpower. My superpower is I break technology wherever I go. But this woman's superpower is having an erotic core.
Okay.
And obviously, yes, you're right. She does know her body's potential, right? Her orgasmic potential.
I think what you're talking about is she believes that her body is hers.
Yes.
And that she has agency over her body.
I love that.
I think, then because it seems like the messages are when you're talking about kind of getting out of the car with those guys standing over there, or the sex shaming messages, that the message sometimes is to women, your body does not belong to you.
Right.
And so like that message, if that message is directed to me 24/7, like then, I think I can see how I would just start to dissociate from my own physical space and believe that it's other people's decisions that are going to affect how my body feels versus my own decisions.
And one of the most powerful influences and critique is the media, right, on women's bodies. That it isn't just your body, but the media, it's like they have a right to critique your body. I mean, think about the female politicians whose outfits are mentioned. I mean, have we ever mentioned a male, what his suit is, what fabric it is, or, no. It's like how she dresses, how she looks is commented on in every realm. It's like she doesn't belong to herself. It's not about her. It's about how she looks. And then there's this industry, this beauty industry that says, with false images, and you don't look so good. I mean, they spend a fortune, literally billions of dollars, to tell women they don't look good and that they need their product.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is real.
So it's nonstop.
The struggle is real.
So what are we going to come and talk about in the break, Laurie? What are we coming back to?
Okay, we're going to come back and talk about how to fight back, how to have the erotic core, and the problems when she does want it more than he does.
Speaking with certified sex therapist Laurie Watson from Awakening Center for Couples and Intimacy. Laurie, what is an intensive?
So an intensive is 12 to 14 hours of therapy all in one weekend. And it's a way to really make fast progress compared to weekly therapy. I mean, there's just so much more you can get done when you have a chunk of time.
Overcome the challenges in your relationship and your sex life. Learn more about intensives and Awakening Center's other services at awakenloveandsex.com.
At Mathews Counseling, we believe it is our job to come alongside you in whatever difficult challenges of life you are in and help you rediscover hope and to find the strength that you have to face those challenges. We strive to create a safe and comfortable place for you to explore who you want to be and identify the obstacles standing in your way. Oftentimes, the first step toward finding help is the hardest, but it can also be the bravest. Give us a call at 919-587-8018. Find us online at mathewscounseling.net. We look forward to working with you.
So we're back with She Wants It More.
Yeah, and we're going to fight back, right?
And we're going to fight back against.
We're going to resist.
We're going to resist the things that stop women from having a healthy sexual libido. So again, I just want to say to you, all of you who have written in, and there have been many who have told us, Laurie, you're not speaking to us. I know I am speaking probably more to the woman who has low libido more often, but I celebrate you. I love you. Y'all are my heroes. I'm so proud of you for maintaining eroticism in difficult circumstances. Yay, yay you. But this woman often is paired, by the time they come see us, Adam, right? They're paired with somebody who doesn't want sex as much, a male partner who doesn't want it as much. Mm-hmm. Although I see obviously lesbian couples as well, and libido differentials are very common in a lesbian couple too. And I know we mostly speak to a heterosexual population, but if you are gay or lesbian or bi, or we love you out there. We want you to be blessed too, and hopefully these things help you as well, these podcasts and information. So she's a woman, and like you're saying, it's so rare for a female to hang on to libido and be the one who wants it more. Does she even exist? And the culture tells her that there's something wrong with her. One, she's a slut, or two, if her partner doesn't want her, then there must be something wrong, right? Because every woman has the power of the P, and she wields that over men. And so if she's unwanted, it must mean ... she's unattractive. And we know that a woman who believes she's unattractive shuts down oftentimes her libido. So this woman is somehow or another fighting a cultural message, fighting the presumption that her husband doesn't find her attractive, and still maintaining libido. I mean, it's a struggle. But I mean, I think many of them say, I'm at a cocktail party, and there's a lot of women there who say, oh gosh, my husband's always pawing at me, and I just wish he'd quit. Is that all he ever thinks about? And she's silent. I mean, women who have low libido have camaraderie. They have support. And men, right, who have low libido wives have support. Yeah. But is there ever a man out there who says to his buddies, gosh, my wife is just all over me all the time. I just can't stand it. I never really want to have sex.
No, he's not going to say that.
No.
And it's going to make him, that probably is a source of shame for him as well, if he feels like she wants it more than he does.
Well, I think there's many reasons that men don't want it as much as she does.
Sure.
I think that's a possibility.
Sure, absolutely.
That he feels ashamed of this difference, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't know how to talk about it. But I think the big one for her is she is out of step with her peer group, out of step with other women, and there's nobody to talk about it to, so she feels isolated, can feel like a freak, or maybe, God willing, she knows she's healthy and that somehow or another there's something wrong between them, certainly, but it's not her libido, And I'm not talking about the woman who is, maybe a borderline woman, which is a personality disorder, who is promiscuous. I'm talking about the woman with partner-specific desires. She wants her partner, and he doesn't want her. And she can become a pursuer just like a male sexual pursuer, and that can result in this angry, arguing cycle with her partner. Why don't you want me? What's wrong with me? Don't you love me? I mean, it can just go ad nauseum, and depending on why he's withdrawn, that can exacerbate things. He often withdraws. Maybe he says he withdraws because of her anger. I know that with so many women that I've seen like this, they say, their partner comes in and says, well, I would want to have sex with her, but right when the moment is ready, she gets mad at me. And of course, I mean, this is so complicated, but oftentimes maybe he's triggered her to be angry. Then he initiates, and she doesn't want it. And he says, see, I do initiate sometimes, but it's very subtle and often very toxic, And then when she says, you're never ready for me, you never want it. I mean, there can be a million reasons. I remember one woman who was beautiful, and I got to just say, to fight for these women, many of them who have come through my office are beautiful, are fit, are intelligent, lovely women. So please, if you are a woman who wants it more, know that I've seen you. I know what you look like. I don't think it's that you're unattractive. But they want it. And this one woman came up to her husband. She's gorgeous. She's naked, comes up behind him while he's brushing his teeth, puts her arms around him, and he's starts giggling. It's like instead of having a response of woohoo, he goes into a child state, and this was just one of the bazillion defenses that he used. And he would often turn around angry, like, what do you want? You always, why now? Or I'm tired, or this, that, and the other thing. And I mean, it can be a real difficult challenge. I would say that the female pursuer and the male distancer is a harder pattern to break than the male sexual pursuer and the female distancer, because it's countercultural. And a man who does not want a woman is usually overriding his testosterone. So he does have drive most of the time. I mean, I would say that's the first thing I would ask for if I were a female sexual pursuer, and to say, and I have certainly identified as that. I remember when I was young, we have worked it out, but in the beginning there were many reasons for that, and I just thought men drop the briefcase at the door and we're ready to go. And my husband was like that guy who wanted wine and dinner. It's like he really wanted connection before he wanted sex. And so there was, a lot of differences that I had to learn. But I think for many women, first call is to say, go ahead and get your testosterone checked. I'm going to need you to do that. And I would like to talk about maybe how to have that conversation so it gets away from the nagging and the begging and all of that.
So if you got a female pursuer and a male distancer, what would you do with them? How would you help them solve that particular dynamic where she's getting more of what she wants and where they're having more sex together in particular?
Well, remember, as a pursuer, you want to take the pressure off. And pursuers always hear me, no matter what gender it is, they hear me saying, okay, that means I'm going to wait forever. Well, in sex, that's not a smart strategy. You don't want to wait forever. But sometimes sexually, the dynamic does need to be healed in order for the distancing partner to recover their own libido. I mean, many times the distancing partner feels controlled. So if there is, it's usually a complicated dynamic in this case. So we want to understand the ways that he feels controlled in general, and then sexually. And what does he do with his libido? I mean, those are the questions I would be asking. Does he have libido? And if so, what does he do? Is he masturbating in the shower?
Is it going away from the relationship?
Yeah. Is it directed away from the relationship? Maybe just, masturbation, or he's using porn or something. And this is not a porn talk, but I mean, sometimes that's a safer place for men to express themselves than the difficulties in the relationship. And so, we need to work on that. But what I say to women is, I want you to have a direct conversation with your partner. Do it at a neutral time, like over coffee, not in the bed. And I would say, there's a few things that they should talk about. And I just wrote down an example of that conversation. I'd say, okay, so Joe Schmo, there's this pattern of me initiating sex with you and you not seeming to want it, and there's not very much sex between us. And I love you, and I want this marriage to be a full partnership, including sexuality. So I have 3 requests. The first request is that, I'd like you to go see a urologist by the end of the month and have your testosterone tested. Will you do that? So when we make a direct request, we make it time limited. We make it very specific, and we ask for a yes or a no. So the person agrees or they don't. Again, in later life, sometimes male withdrawal from the relationship sexually is often due to ED. He's got it crazy in his head that all women want is a hard penis. And so since he doesn't feel like he can provide that, he backs up. But that is not all women want, just for the record. The second question that I think she should ask is, would you be willing to please me as a willing partner when you don't even have the need for orgasm? Would you participate? And I think about the bazillions of women throughout history who have said, yeah, let's do a quickie. They're a willing partner, and they go for it. So that doesn't mean he has to have an erection to do this, right? He can do this manually or with oral sex. He can hold her while she uses a vibrator. Whatever turns them on, he can still do and give her pleasure and feel warm and loving and giving to her without experiencing desire himself.
Yeah.
And then the third thing would be, if we can't resolve this, would you be willing to see a sex therapist with me to work this out? And again, you're waiting for a yes or a no, because this chronic problem kind of has to be nailed down, so to speak. You have to get some traction on it. So I would be looking for the yes and the no, and then measuring what that means. If it's yes, okay, let's say in 6 months, if doing these first 2 things, you seen a urologist and just pleasing me when you don't necessarily have desire yourself, doesn't seem to work for us, then by January, let's go see a sex therapist. Are you agreed to that? Yes. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I think she has to be careful in that sense of not blaming him for the problem. If you're going to ask him to go see a urologist, just do so in a way that is understanding of this is a common thing that happens in life. It's not it's not necessarily something that's broken in him, and specifically, it's not something that's broken in his manhood.
Or it's not his fault.
It's not his fault.
If he, particularly, this is the man who says, I just don't feel any desire, and he's not necessarily siphoning it off in any other direction. I mean, it's logical to expect that there might be a testosterone problem, and, going to get that checked out is really useful for him as well, because men who have low T often have depression issues, energy issues, they have trouble building muscle mass. I mean, it's a kind thing to do, and I think, sometimes women need to push men to go to the doctor.
Sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
Just remember.
Okay, so that's the conversation. But again, high desire women, I celebrate you.
You can now call in your questions to the Foreplay question voicemail. Dial 833-MY-4PLAY. That's 833-4-PLAY. And we'll use the questions for our mailbag episodes.
Hey, help us stay on top here at Foreplay. We'd love it if you would subscribe and share it with your friends. And please take 1 sec and rate and review us. Thanks so much.
All content is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as a substitute for therapy